Hello.
Hi.
So today I'd noticed that, in the shifts that you've been making, how you believed that you were invisible and you felt that when you were young, if you stood on a patch of grass, no one could see you. But even as an adult, you still felt that no one could see you.
Mm.
And, as you discussed that, it was, worked through that. What you'd realised is that because number one, you weren't recognised. Your needs weren't met. So you were hiding all the time, but in places where people could see you, but
Yeah.
nobody said anything. Did that. And you didn't want to be seen either because you felt the world was quite a cruel, scary place to be in. And so recently, in your development, you've now done a photo shoot for an exhibition. And the exhibition went up at Leeds Beckett.
No, Glasgow University.
Was it Glasgow University?
It was Glasgow University.
Oh, right, okay. So, because it went up there, tell me what does that feel like for you, and how did it go?
Well, like you said, from being little, all I've wanted to do is be invisible. If I had it in my head, if I have to be alive in this world, because I always wished, can't I get a disease and die? But if I have to be alive, I want to be invisible because then nobody can hurt me. And I felt I was really bad person, so I wouldn't hurt anybody else. So being invisible felt like a really good option if I had to be alive in this world.
So even though you hadn't hurt anybody else, you've been hurt because you've been ripped. That you felt that you were bad because of that. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't feel. I felt that I was a bad person because of that's what people labelled my behaviours as a child. That I were awkward, that I were rude because I didn't socialise. I didn't want to go out places. I wouldn't go to school. So those around me, my family and those around me, not knowing that I was being sexually abused, they were, well, you're being awkward, aren't you? You're being rude. Why aren't you speaking to people? Why don't you want to go there?
So that's how you interpreted being ignored, because no one was asking you what was wrong.
Yeah.
They was telling you that, kind of abusing you again.
Yeah.
By calling you names.
Yeah. So I just took on those because I didn't, to be fair, I didn't have a clue what were going on. And
no one spotted your behaviour either, other than
they spotted my behaviour to say that it was unacceptable and that nobody's going to like you, or we just put up with you because we want children. You should be grateful. That kind of thing. Your behaviour's unacceptable and that kind of. So I took on the belief that I was unacceptable because I didn't see. I was only like 5 or 6, so I didn't see that. I didn't go, oh, my behaviour's changed because I'm frightened because somebody sexually abused and raped me and this, that, and other. I didn't know that. I just knew that I'd get angry all the time. I'd hit out at my dad. It wasn't my dad that abused me, but I'd hit out at him if he spoke to me. I'd go past and kick him and call him names.
And even though you did that, no one, in that world of invisibility, no one had asked a question of why is our child behaving like this? You were just, you went through that hell and that torture and all that pain, and then you just got called names because, as I've said, before, lots of children tend to have no rights. They're there to please the adults. And quite often, they suffer the adults. And in that case, that's what was happening for you.
Yeah.
So when you think about how hard that was for you to let yourself be seen in, doing a photo shoot, what was that like?
Well, and going on that invisibility, I'd kept that. I wanted to keep that all throughout my adult life. It stayed with me. I felt I was better off. I was safer, particularly now that I thought I was that bad and that horrible. I was even more protecting other people from me by being invisible and not socialising.
What would you do then if you saying I'm protecting other people from me?
I don't know. I just thought I was that bad. I was just that horrible.
So to just be around you was bad.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So and I think I tried to compensate and try and cover up how bad I was, because I didn't want people to know how bad I was. Because also the church told me I was bad as well. I didn't want people to know. So that's when I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I can on reflection now. That's when all the fawning, the masking, the people pleasing, the perfectionists at work. You know, when I worked in social care, we had inspections and stuff. My files were faultless because I was like,
Yeah.
everything had to be perfect. It was a way
So
of being
can you,
invisible.
sorry, darling, can you see how that invisibility played out throughout?
Yeah,
Yeah. So, but when you were visible,
yeah. So
then
I've become visible this last maybe 4 or 5 years.
okay. So, but this one's quite a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
To do what you
Yeah.
did. So, when you were asked to do it, what was that like for you?
I've been very vocal on LinkedIn about my experiences. I want to share my experiences, not to criticise people, but for people to learn and understand. Because I do say the negative side of people that I've met and the and how I've related to them and stuff like that. So you could go, oh, she's always negative or critical. I'm doing it as a way of learning and say this wasn't helpful for me. This approach didn't work for me. So I've been trying to be very open and honest.
Well, I guess what you're saying is that when we do something positive, it's okay to say I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
But just to be from your experiences, you've experienced things that have been right, but also you're experiencing things that have been wrong. And the reason why for you is that you've learned as well equally to the people that you want to teach, is that you equally learned things that were wrong, because we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're
Yeah.
taught things that are wrong, we all learn things that are
To
wrong.
be fair, a lot of the harm that was caused to me was by people with good intentions, thinking that they were helping or trying to help.
But if people have been taught wrong, such as I say, the word cult means you're in a cult, and you don't know that you're in a cult until somebody points it out to you, and then it can be quite difficult to believe. But when you look at the world the way it is, how everybody is programmed to eat addictive food, and we eat addictive food because you're addicted to it. So if you're able to stop eating that, you'll find your addiction, because you'll find out how hard it is to stop. You say, do you see what I mean? So you say, oh, well, people are alcoholics because they're eating sugar, and people are being poisoned. They're being poisoned by the food that they're being given, and a lot of that's why illness is caused. And it really makes sense where you say, well, and I say, don't believe a word I say. Find out for yourself. But people don't find out because we're so trusted that we trust that the cult that we're in, but we're being controlled in every area. And if you had to look at the, say the law, the real law, not the one that's been taught. So if you think, well, what things have been taught in society? It's things by businessmen. It's not things by, so you could see oh, that person's, they're really brainy. It's like, no, they don't. They're not. The brain is a recording machine. The brains are that you're born with them. The child already knows. You see what I mean? And then it gets taken out of you. So the brain or intelligence, when they're very intelligent, it's like, their brain's recorded a lot of stuff. Intelligence would be to not believe everything you're told and go find out for yourself. But so when you see, that's why I speak about labels. Just because you have a label doesn't make you intelligent. It doesn't matter what label that you have. If you've been taught wrong, you're a professional in doing something that doesn't really work. It only looks to work, but it might not really work because you believe it works, and it's, we do what we believe, don't we?
Yeah.
So it's like that. So that's what you're saying, is that these things that I experienced from professionals didn't work because it didn't work for you, because it was the wrong thing, but you've been told you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're defected, there's something wrong with you. And I think really when you look, because this machine that we have gets treated less than any other machine I know on the planet. Any other machine. Do you see what I mean? Any other machine, you put something bad in it, straight away it would be cleaned out, and then you put the good stuff in. But with our body, you put something bad in it, and then you put a tablet in to shut it up. And that, to me, it doesn't make sense. So I think it's that we're trying to make sense of the nonsense, but also what we're trying to do is say, maybe your experience for you is helpful. Maybe the message that you give out might be the similar help what somebody else might need by just being asked, what is it that you need? Because quite often when the person asks, you know, if I say to somebody, what do you want from this planet? Quite often they don't have an answer to it because they've already been told must, should, have to, got to, and fear. So they're in that little prison box and they've only got that to play with unless they can see outside of that. So, you know, when you say that it's negative, it's like things are only positive and negative because we're uncomfortable with them. And we need to be making it comfortable. Because if we keep shunning away and we only want the comfortable, we're not going to learn anything. We can only learn by doing something wrong, because next time we might get it right.
So it were a big step for me then putting on LinkedIn some bits of like what historically I'd thought, oh, I'm going to get told off because I'm being negative about somebody, I'm being bad about somebody. But I just want to explain my experiences. And as I've become more visible on there and people have been like acknowledging what I've said and stuff, it's made me have the confidence to actually comment on other people's things and share my or put a different point of view. I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm just saying that might be for some, but this is how I experience it. And a guy on LinkedIn messaged me and said, I'm doing this photography project about getting rid of the stigma and about child sexual abuse and showing about the different strengths that we all have and the different ways that we all deal with it to try and get to a better place or deal with it in different ways. And he says, I'm a photographer and I'm doing an exhibition. I want to do an exhibition that tours and everything. Would you be involved? So at first it was like, no, leave me alone. You're a weirdo. I'm all right speaking to invisible people on LinkedIn, but this is a bit too visible.
Because you're going to be exposed now.
Yeah. And like when I've done talks before at universities or at, you know, to groups of people or schools and stuff like that, it's been sort of like in a room and it's enclosed. Where it was like going, I want, you know, I've got visions of it, you know, going on tour, and I'm so it took me a while to change my mind and actually think, no, it is something that I feel if I'm going to be visible, I want to be totally visible, not half invisible or whatever. And I thought it also helped me not build trust, because that takes a lot for me to deal with, but actually take a risk. Because my first thought, well, when I got in touch from a man approached me and asked me, would I do this? I was like, no, you're some kind of weirdo, I'm not doing it. No, it's going to be awful.
Is that because it was a man?
It was a man who abused me.
Yeah.
And what do you want from me? What can I give you? And all that kind of thing.
So it was fearful.
Yeah.
Being asked by.
Yeah. But again, as we talk about things, it's about he might be a really nice bloke, but I'm putting on him all my hatred and badness from my experiences on him, label him a weirdo who's going to hurt me, and I've never even met him or anything.
But it's not, you don't have badness.
No.
So you just, do you see what I mean? You're saying all my hatred and all my badness. It's like, because you're believing that you're bad.
Yeah.
When you're not, you experience something horrific. And because you experienced it, you're owning it now as if it's you. You're taking it on as if it's you.
It's not something I experienced.
It's not you. No, so you're not bad. And it's not the hate, ultimately, that you're putting onto him. And it might be, that's what you say, but it looks like the fear. I'm scared of him. So I'm going to tell myself, you know, asking the questions, what does he want? Does he want from me as a weirdo? Straight away, does that sound like hate or does that sound like fear?
It sounds like fear.
Okay.
But I guess from being little, I've been told it's been seen as awkward, hate, nasty, and all that kind of thing, horrible.
Okay.
So I guess that's the label I keep referring to.
If you look at it a little bit deeper and say, does that sound...
It's fear. Our fear that he was going to hurt me, or he was going to use me, or he wanted something from me that I wasn't willing to give, sort of thing.
So was it that realisation, you know, when you said, well, I want to be visible, that realisation that actually it gave you a choice?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And it was very nice. He's lovely and very sweet. And So I let him take my photograph, and there's a few people that he's done so far. I think he's got a list of people who want to be part of the project, but that I don't know, maybe 10, maybe, I don't know. And he does a black and white picture and a coloured picture, and he sent them to me. He kept when we were having the photography shoot, he's like, "Do you want to look at them?" I'm like, "No," because as I've mentioned before, I don't like looking at myself. I'm like, "No, if you're happy with it, it's fine, it's fine. I don't want to see it." It's like, "That's a really good one. Do you want?" No, no, no. As long as you. So when he sent me them, that was a big deal for me, looking at them and being visible to myself.
Yes.
And that in itself were a really weird process. Seeing the coloured one for me, whether what he intended is different, but my interpretation was the coloured one was the smiley one, the facade that I've put on all my life, if this is what I'm like to people. The black and white one, I just saw all my experiences in it, the distress, the unhappiness, and I could just see it all encapsulated in me. I felt it was a really powerful photo.
So the photo was powerful for you. You actually saw yourself then in that.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at is a person that's got all this distress.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I could see that and sense that.
Had you not seen that in yourself before, having not been able to look at?
No.
Okay.
I've not, even with like doing these videos and stuff, when I've watched them without the voice on, or I've listened to the voice but without the picture. I've not really looked. I don't even really look in the mirror when I'm getting dressed or ready. I glance, but I don't actually see what's there.
So is that because of the external critical voices you've taken in? So when you look at yourself, or as you mentioned before, the way you speak, you're critical of yourself because
I'm disgusted.
You're disgusted because somebody criticized you.
Yeah.
And who is anybody else to criticize you?
No, nobody. But I've from such a young age, I've just listened to everybody else around me, and that's who I have become. I felt that their voices were the truth and more important than mine.
I guess then it's that repeat of we take in the criticisms and abuses of others, but the great thing is when you realise that it's not yours, it's of others.
And that's what I try to think about and hold on about. And I was quite surprised that I were able to reflect on with this photographer that I was putting all this stuff on him and I hadn't even met him. And I was like, oh yeah, look what I've done. And it was like, oh, I could, for one at first time I noticed on my own independently without any help, I were able to step back and say, that's what I've been doing to him. I hadn't even met him. He's been nice enough to reach out and say, I've read some of your stuff. Would you be part of this project? And everything. And it's like, I've put all this stuff on him.
A story onto him.
Yeah.
That doesn't belong to him. Just as a story something was put onto you.
And it's little things like that change is so minute and so small, but different. And when you notice, it's like, oh yeah.
And it feels that there you kind of feel a breeze in that, don't you? And almost freedom.
Yeah.
That, wow, I've realized, I can see it. And that's the thing, is that's, that it's not what somebody puts on you. It's when you know that that's what's happening. Do you see what I mean? There's your freedom, because I now know it. Well, as before, you believed it was you. And now you can kind of say, no, I can separate myself.
Yeah. And I put I gave lots of caveats to him before I did it. I'm like going, you can't show it anywhere where you haven't asked me, because it's like I felt, because in the past my experiences have been used by other people to promote them, promote their ego, promote their service, promote and take it where they want to and interpret it how they want to.
So they have an agenda.
Yeah. So with him, I was like, you want to you've got to ask me before you show it to anybody. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. But he knew where I was coming from, and he asked me, this is the Scottish Mental Health Arts Festival. The exhibition's been going to be part of that. Am I okay? It being at, it's going to be in Glasgow. The exhibition that he's done is at Glasgow University at the Research Centre. It's there now. I think it shuts tomorrow. I think it's been open 2 weeks or something like that. And so I was like, right, we can face this. We can deal it. If we're going to be visible, we'll give it a go and see what happens. If it's awful and I can't deal with it, well, I can always go back to keeping my mouth shut and this, that, and other. And I was really quite, it sounds a funny word to use, but I was quite pleased that I'd done it. However, a couple of days after it had opened, I got a message from him saying that, you know, he sent me a video of it, and the other people who were involved, not just me, he sent us all a video of what the exhibition looked like, and when it opened, he did a little speech and everything like that, and it was like.
So the exhibition was about, you know,
they're called survivors
right, so
of child sexual abuse.
So about having an open forum.
Yeah.
And
interestingly, the theme of this year's Scottish Mental Health Arts Festival is actually invisible, visible.
So to make it more visible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I'm part of something that's really like.
And that's kind of been your journey as well, being invisible to be visible. Yeah. So even that is a validation in itself, you know, saying the university is validating that because they're saying, oh, this is what, you know, this is what this is about. And so
yeah, I think within a few days anyway, I got a message from him saying that the exhibition was at the entrance hall. I'd seen it at the entrance hall of the Research Centre at Glasgow University, and just to let us all know that it had been moved to a side room. I don't know the ins and outs and the communication and stuff, but the gist of it is it's been moved to a side room with a warning notice on the door because some people had complained it was too upsetting, being in such a prominent position. I don't know whether they worked there, they were students.
Because now you have to be put into a side room now, so that, you know, that's like, you know, if you said, you know, when you were 5-year-old, you didn't get a warning.
No.
You got nothing. And yet
nobody I know that I've come across people who've experienced child sexual abuse.
You don't get a warning.
You don't get a warning.
No,
whether it's a content warning, a trigger, life does not come with it.
With that warning.
Yeah.
And yet somebody's walked into the university on that. I mean, they must have known surely that, you know, it's mental health thing. So but anyway, they've walked in and wanted you to be put invisible again.
That's how I interpreted
with a warning.
It.
So like if you imagine a child, because that's what I've got a vision now. I know it's not, but I've just got a vision of, is that what society's come to, that we just don't want to face the truth about human beings, do we?
No.
So because we don't want to face the truth of what's really here, we just want nice things. Like, you know, like we don't want bad things, even though they exist. They seem to exist more than the nice things half the time. But anyway, so imagine a 5-year-old being told, go in there, we'll put a warning on the door. This child's being abused, don't go in if you don't want to know anything about it. So what did that make you feel like?
It was, because it was last week, I'm coming through and I'm able to take a step back and reflect on how I felt. But within a second of reading that, I was consumed, all I can describe is like this blanket of shame just hit me and covered me. I've never once, even though I've wanted to be invisible, I've never once felt ashamed or shamed of what has happened to me. I've felt ashamed of who I've become because, you know, that I hit my dad, that, you know, that was where my aggression, I've been ashamed of some of the behaviours and some of the things I've done, but I've never been ashamed that I was sexually abused or raped as a child. But for the first time ever, it was actually after a therapy session, I'd come out and I checked my phone and I was just down the road and this huge wave of shame just came over me and engulfed me. And it felt a physical pain.
Yes.
I felt as if I'd been told by society, this is how I interpret it, I've been told by society, you're too much, we have to hide you away. Yeah, we'll acknowledge you a little bit, but really you're being put away. That's how I interpret it, and it lived, that feeling lived with me for quite a while, and elements of it now keep coming back and stuff like that.
So all that, that building yourself up to come out into society to say this is what, and then that shutting you away, that we don't want to we don't want to hear that.
And I think it's brought a lot of, well, it's brought something up with me, which is throughout my life then, right? Because that exhibition is acknowledged that we're there, but actually we don't want you at the front anymore because it's going to be too much. We'll put you in a side room.
But with a warning.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, that's what, when you see, I guess, there's always warnings about, because we're always inciting fear in society, but it's like being on the loose, and you put a warning out that something dangerous is on the loose. So to have a victim that has a warning on them, that you and the other people that you've shared all this, that you've now got a warning on you, and it's supposed to be making you visible, but you're being visible with a warning on.
So you can look at if you want, but I won't bother if you don't want to be upset.
Well, there's a warning on it.
Yeah.
So it's like that. Now there's this warning on. It's dehumanizing, I think.
And I think what it made me think is, all these years when I thought I was successfully being invisible because it benefited me, it kept me safe, were I actually invisible, or were I acknowledged but ignored? So it's brought up that, and I think there is a big difference for me between invisible and being ignored.
Well, children, not all, but there's a lot of children, when they're being abused or something, there's a shift in the behaviour, and you can quite often see that there's something wrong with a child on their behaviour. So a lot of it is just willful ignorance or willful blindness. You just don't want to address it. So it's like that. It's very rare, as far as I know anyway, and in other places it might be a really big thing, but it's like having empathy for a child. I don't see much of empathy for children. I'm not saying that some children don't get, of course they do, but I haven't seen it in society. Even when you go to school, even when you're a young adult, there's not much empathy, because you're constantly applied with work, and all the the massive rise in depression and suicide for young people is just unbelievable. So there's that constant pressure. Do what we want, do what we want, do what we want. As I say, the school is AKA prison. Because if you don't comply, then there's going to be.
And very contradictory for young people to understand. Because I was thinking, it's completely digressing, but what you've said, when it's around exam time, so much pressure is placed on young people, and I felt that myself at the time, about how important they are, and this, that, and the other. But yet, when it's results time, it's don't matter what you got, don't matter what you got. It's like, well, they were making it seem like it were life and death when I were doing these exams,
it's just ridiculous,
and now you're telling me it don't matter what I've got. Chill out. If I ain't got any good grades, I can always resit and I can do this. But 6 months ago, when that young person was doing them, it was a matter of life and death, and how important.
You're not even going to use as an adult, because it's orchestrated that way, just for the sake of it, really. It's just orchestrated that way, because if you really cared about children and cared about their education and cared about people as human beings, then why aren't we learning about human beings? Why aren't we learning about our autonomy, our sovereignty? Why aren't we learning about those things? Why are we learning about things to work as, like I say, John Rockefeller, who said, I want them to work, I do not want them to think. So that we're constantly being bombarded with what to think. Do you see what I mean? Constantly told what to think, so we don't think for ourselves.
Which is I find, which sort of like angered me. This upset me, but with the Glasgow University, the thing that angered me was their reason was saying that they'd made a trauma-informed action to move it, and I felt,
instead of dealing with the people, you know, they say like people have walked in and they're offended by that, and that might have triggered something for them. Instead of saying, let's get help for that. Let's get help for that. Let's have a look at that and get help. They're saying the people that have suffered trauma, they're doing a trauma-informed exercise. It makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever.
I felt like you caught, well, to make a trauma-informed approach.
So they're now traumatised.
You're traumatising me.
So you're moving that from that room.
Yeah.
How does that resolve them? You know, like if somebody doesn't like something, when we get uncomfortable in our bodies because we don't like something, it's not because of the something out there that we don't like. It's because of the something in here that's the trigger. We've already got a scar to it, and it's scratched the scar, and because that's the trigger. So it's not the thing itself, because if it was, then there'd be no help. There won't be any help. Well, you cooked. If that bothers you, then it bothers you. There's nothing that can be done. But we know there's something that can be done. You know that innately inside of you. That's why we have the words and ask for help, because we know there's something wrong, and instinctively it shouldn't be there. Now we might not know that, say that I don't know how to get help. You see what I mean? But ultimately, we ask for nature asks for help when it needs it. It knows there's help out there. It knows that what's happening is wrong. So why do you then? It's like saying, well, what we'll do is we'll move all what's disturbing you. So you're not going to get well. You're not going to resolve the matter. We'll just start clearing things off the planet that are bothering you.
And isn't that the opposite of understanding trauma? Yeah. Understanding trauma is sitting with the uncomfortable, working through the uncomfortable, not avoiding it, not distracting from it, not hiding it, not putting it in a room.
And it's just, in my view, it's willful blindness and willful ignorance. To ignore something is just willful ignorance. We're going to ignore this. What we're going to do is we're going to put it away and hide it. And it's just willful ignorance. And I think, I understand your anger. I understand your frustration, for that. Because I think that's what was the purpose in the first place.
And it did make me question. It did make me say, am I doing the right thing? Should I not be doing these videos? Should I not be speaking? Should I be hiding away?
Well, that's the thing. When you look at it, you've experimented both. So you have experimented, is it right for me to hide away, and realised it's not. And the reason why you realised it's not is because you realised that there's a deficit in society. Do you see what I mean? And then you just faced it. You faced the very thing. So it's like, I'd say, a synchronicity really is the very thing came true. The reason why you were hiding away. Yeah. Because people don't want to know, it's too uncomfortable. So it's like La La Land. Yeah, this isn't happening. It's happening all around us, but we'll just go to La La Land. And that's what we do. Because we might have to do something. We might have to make an effort. We might have to do something that's uncomfortable.
Been a very unexpected experience as this. Generated a lot.
But the good thing is that from that, you want me to do the video and still continue and say, even if I get the message to one person, and it helps that person, then that one person is worth it. Because every one person.
I did explain to I've explained to one person out of therapy what the experience that it had on me and something, and it made it worthwhile when somebody went, I really get what you're saying. I'm speechless, because you sort of like saying me experiences, and I thought, well, that's why it's happened, so that I can.
And you're not on your own with it, are you? Because the other people as well that have equally experienced being put to one side.
Yeah.